Hello and welcome to Industry Spotlight with Creative First. Our guest today is Karan Taurani, Senior Vice President, Elara Capital. With over 16 years of experience in institutional equity research, he is also an independent director on the board of renowned South-based production house Kavitalaya Productions. Karan's expertise spans analyzing trends, patterns across all mediums of the media and entertainment space and the internet sector, backed by financial analysis and forecasting. He has also successfully advised multiple domestic and foreign institutional investor funds in the media and entertainment and internet sectors. He holds a master's degree in financial management from the Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies and has been ranked the number one analyst as per Asia Money polls for the media and entertainment sector globally in 2021, 22, and 23. Karan, welcome to this discussion.
Hi, Loita. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us a bit about the research and equity markets with a specific focus on the media and entertainment space.
So basically, what we exactly do is, we track a lot of trends in the M&A industry. We try and build a lot of hypotheses around these trends in terms of how a company or a particular segment is going to perform. And basis that, we develop our understanding and in-depth analysis, of all these hypotheses and trends that we track. And then we basically identify stocks or companies which ideally fit in this entire mix, right? So, for example, there could be, for example, a PVR, right? So all things are working in favor for PVR, in the ecosystem, and we probably, give this kind of an advice to mutual funds and foreign investors, and also to life insurance companies. So basically, it's an advisory thing wherein the fund managers invest, basis our advice, and this is sector agnostic. It happens in the internet sector. We do work across print media, various forms of media, everything put together. But it's primarily, tracking trends very closely and then trying to see whether the financial implication or the numbers are following those trends or not in terms of growth patterns. So that's broadly the KRA in terms of what we do in terms of research as far as equities is concerned.
How has the performance of the media and entertainment industry been in the last year, and how are the markets responding to that?
So I think if you look at particularly the media entertainment industry over the last 1 year, it's been quite volatile. I mean, in terms of the listed names, if you see, there are these large listed companies like Z Entertainment, Sun TV, PVR, and then you have a very long tail of smaller names which are there. Some of them are print companies like TV Corp, some of them Jagran Prakashan, ST Media, Dish TV. Many of these names are there. I think the problem with media as a sector has been that all these names are traditional media companies, and none of them are digital first companies. So, somewhere there is an issue in terms of them wanting or trying to scale up their digital offerings, right? Because traditional media, if you see, you've got traditional players. So for example, let's take the example of Z Entertainment. Okay, they are competing with Disney, they are competing with Sony, they are competing with Viacom, which are in the TV business primarily. But in the case of digital, it's a huge market. I mean, you're competing with gaming companies, you're competing with e-commerce firms, tech giants like search, social, everything put together. So I'm saying the performance has been quite volatile in the post-COVID era for traditional media names because most of them have not been able to scale up as far as digital offerings concerned because of a high competitive intensity over there. But nonetheless, I think consolidation has been a very big savior for the media industry. So typically, if you look at the case of PVR and Inox, in the post-COVID era, footfalls have not come back to pre-COVID levels on a consistent basis. We've lagged by almost about 20 odd percent, but somewhere because there is consolidation, it's a saving grace because there are synergies between both these companies, and that is leading to better financial growth of the company. And I think Z Sony was in talks as well, but unfortunately, that merger has been called off. There is also RIL Disney, which is also currently in talks. So I'm saying consolidation is a saving grace here. In fact, companies like Network 18, TV 18 are also two media mammoths who are planning for a merger between both. So that is also saving grace because the point is once these companies come together, they can work on their strengths and they can then try to compete hard on the digital market side, which is highly fragmented.
The equities sector largely focuses on macroeconomic trends. What are some of the key indicators related to the health of the media and entertainment industry, and what trends are they showing?
So, from a trend standpoint, I think there are multiple trends here. I think, as I told you, one very big trend is that linear TV is going to have a struggle time. For the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to be challenging for them to grow as compared to what they have seen in terms of historical growth rates. So, historical growth rates, for example, for linear TV is somewhere close to about 8, 10, 12%. That could see a fall towards 2 to 3% on a steady state because clearly consumption is moving to digital in a very big manner. So that's one trend, in terms of how can linear TV overcome this growth issue. Obviously, that will happen once they scale up to digital, once they invest into content. Every broadcaster in the country today has got their own OTT platform. Everybody's making really strong efforts to scale up their digital offering. So I think that is a key, monitorable here in terms of how this growth of 2-3% moves towards a 7-8% kind of a number. That's one big trend that traditional media across, print, across various all other mediums of media are kind of, finding it a struggle or a challenge to scale up the digital offering. That's one trend. Second very big trend is consolidation again, which I told you. So I think most of these companies will need to come together, will need to consolidate so that they can have synergies in place, they can work to best of their interest, and they can compete outside this traditional media landscape. And there's a lot of innovation also happening on that front. Uh, Third very big trend is the connected device or connected TV. That is, I think, a mega trend because that trend is just taken off. So I think in a country like India, we've got close to more than 200 million households, and rather TV households. And out of that, you can say almost about 15, 20 million TV households are on connected TV, which can potentially grow to 35, 40 million connected TV households. I think that is a very big trend because you've never had this kind of a situation in linear TV, rather, wherein you can measure audience. Now, we have got something like BARC, which is a TV measurement system, but BARC is more on sampling basis. There are some 40, 50,000 boxes which are measured, and basis that, you come to a conclusion. But connected TV can give you real-time data. It can give proper insights to the advertiser in terms of what is being consumed, how it is being consumed. So I think that is another very big trend which is there. And, inversely to that, or rather opposite of that, is the cord cutting trend, which is also started off. So I think, we don't have too many households nowadays which have got two or three set-top boxes. It might have two or three TVs, but only the first TV is through a set-top box, and the rest all connected TV. So there is some mild cord cutting which is happening. In fact, there are households, which only have got connected TV. They don't have a set-top box. It's just connected TV first, which is there. So I think these are some trends, which are emerging that, this clearly goes to show what is the kind of impact digital has in terms of the overall ecosystem, and it is kind of urgent right now for all these players to scale up their digital offerings. Another thing is the advertising approach. So I think if you look at the advertising, that has been under slight pressure in terms of trend or in terms of what is going to happen over the next near term. There have been verticals like e-commerce, digital first companies, gaming companies, which actually spent a big chunk of advertising during COVID. And in the post-COVID era, I think because of issues globally and because of the valuations of these companies coming down, these companies wanting to focus on profitability, there is a cut or a pullback in terms of ad spend from these companies. So I think that is also one trend, which is emerging. That when will these ad spends actually come back? And net, I think if the consolidation happens, you will see a structural shift wherein bargaining power will move favorably towards the platforms, because currently what is happening is that we've got too many platforms, and the producers, the creative ecosystem is kind of having their own terms most of the times in terms of when it comes to pricing a particular piece of content or pricing a web series or a movie, everything put together, they are kind of having their own terms. Content cost is increasing massively for the industry, and we've seen that over the last 5 years how content cost has gone off the roof. But if there is consolidation, I think content costs will come to a more realistic standpoint across categories, whether it could be web series or movies or digital first movies or short form videos, everything put together. So I'm saying these are some trends which are emerging, and of course, one very big trend I see is regional, right? I mean, when you saw this entire OTT, uptake take off after 2015, 16, when 4G data prices were cheap, we've seen English transition entirely to digital or OTT in the pre-COVID era. Uh, Post-COVID era kind of accelerated these trends, wherein Hindi also saw a leapfrog or a jump, from linear TV to digital. And I think regional is the next big growth driver. So you're going to see a lot of regional content being produced. You're going to see a lot of regional TV viewers moving to digital. And this is going to be a mega trend in itself. I mean, we don't have too many platforms making too much of regional content. I think Z5 is one of the them which is kind of making many original regional content. But Netflix, Amazon have made some inroads, but not as aggressively as they've done in the Hindi genre. So I'm saying the South, the non-South regional genre is going to see a big uptick in terms of consumption on the digital side. So these are some trends which could emerge over the near to medium term.
We are one of the most underscreen markets. So, where do you see theatrical going in terms of, expansion of screens and, also penetration in, tier two, tier three cities?
So, see, I think, cinema, of course, we are one of the underscreen markets. Global markets like US, China are at somewhere close to 50,000 screens, 70,000 screens, respectively. India, as we speak, our screens pre-COVID versus post-COVID have come down. We were at somewhere close to 10,000 odd screens in the pre-COVID times. Post-COVID, today we are at somewhere around 8 to 8,500 screens, right? And what has led to this entire struggle is that single screens have shut down in a very big way. So number of screens, single screens have actually come down very sharply. And there are two reasons for that. One is, content in the post-COVID era has been very volatile, right? Because clearly films are not working on a consistent basis, and single screens are large in terms of their size. Average number of seats are about 500, 600, right? So they require films to work consistently, right? And they require people to come in very large numbers. So most of these single screens have been making hefty losses. Content has not been great for them in terms of consistency, and that's why they've shut down. Some of them do not even have money to upgrade, and that's why they've shut down. Other part is competition from the multiplexes, right? So I think multiplexes have actually raised the bar as far as experience of movie going is concerned, and there is a lot of shift happening in terms of market share from single screens to multiplexes. So if you look at multiplexes, ideally, their market share has been increasing consistently in the pre-COVID times as well. But in the post-COVID era, I think this has accelerated because the kind of content we have seen in the post-COVID era, whatever success box office has seen across Hindi, English, regional, wherever you take it, it is all been by large franchise films, which are larger than life films, right? So that's how you call it. And those are films wherein people want to view it in 4K projectors, okay, in a better projector quality, in a better ambience, and the customer is willing to pay that premium ticket price, for the overall experience which is there. So I think single screen struggle is here to stay. I don't foresee them, coming back in a big manner. Multiplex is gaining share. I think this will continue over the next 3 to 4 years. In fact, if you just take some box office numbers for Hindi as a circuit, close to 75 to 80% of the collection does come from multiplexes. And this number of 20% can only go down further as far as Hindi is concerned. So the only saving grace for single screens rather is the South market, because there you still have a sizable chunk of collections coming from single screens as compared to multiplexes. English again has been a very similar story, right? So I think to your question in terms of outlook for the screen, yeah. So basically, if you look at single screen from a genre standpoint, Hindi, English, regional, they've seen a reduction in terms of market share, from these genres coming from single screen. So I think that is one very valid trend which will continue, over the near to medium term. To your question of penetration, of course, penetration opportunity is very much there in terms of density, in terms of screens per million population. We are way lower as compared to the other markets like China and US. But the problem is now content has become a problem. OTT trends have kind of accelerated in the post-COVID era. Customer has kind of become, very selective in terms of what is the kind of film they want to go and watch in cinemas. Why would they pay, or why would they spend that much time and effort to go and watch the film into cinemas? So I think that the behavior is kind of changed over here. So I think we don't see sharp expansion as far as screen growth is concerned. Because to your question of penetration in the post-COVID era, we don't see single screens expanding. In fact, number of single screens will continue to shut down. Uh, you can arguably say that almost about 2 to 300 single screens are shutting down every year on an average. So that number will continue to come down. And on the other hand, multiplexes, you will see expansion by almost about 200, 250 screens of multiplexes getting added every year across, various multiplex chains that we have. That's a broad number. It can increase or decrease basis how the content is there from here on. So my point is that multiplexes will take center stage. You won't see screen expansion as such, but I think but multiplexes will gain market share. Box office will also grow because of higher ticket prices. Ticket prices of multiplexes are somewhere close to 4 to 5 times as compared to what a single screen would be. So I think these are the broader drivers. Again, as I said, in tier two and tier three markets also, there is a change in time in terms of consumption and habit. It is not only in the metro cities. In tier two, tier three markets, also the frequency of going to cinemas has come down. And a very big data point, if I can share with you, in the post-COVID era, the box office share from large budget films for Hindi as a genre has come to 90% plus, and this number was 50%. So the point is that in the pre-COVID times, you had the collection being skewed across 25, 30, 35 films which were there, which were a mix of small budget, medium budget, and large budget. In the post-COVID era, your entire dependence has come on the large budget. So if these large budget films are performing, like for example in CY23, most of the large budget films did perform, like Pathan, Jawan, Gadar, everything put together, Animal. Now, this has to happen on a consistent basis. If it does, then cinemas are doing good. If it does not, then you'll see a decline in cinema box office numbers in CY24. So I think this is a problem or a challenge area, which is one issue to address, that you need to find that balance between small, medium budget films and large budget films, which I don't think will come back. It's a structural concern because audience, as I said, consumption habits have changed and people have moved to OTT, and they are okay to wait. If the film is not worth, going and spending the money, time, and effort into cinemas, they're okay to wait for 4 weeks, 6 weeks for that small budget film to come into cinema. So small budget films will do well, but very, very selectively. I mean, pre-COVID times, you had medium budget films or small budget films which were doing well every month or maybe every 3 weeks. But now the frequency has come down to maybe 12 weeks, 18 weeks, 20 weeks. So I think the frequency is an issue here, and that challenge will remain, for some time.
How has the industry shaped up in the last decade with the growth of OTT and newer technologies? And how do you see the evolution of the business models of streaming platforms?
So I think from a growth standpoint, everything is very hunky-dory, right? I mean, if you look at the numbers, it just says it all. So from CY13, the contribution of digital advertising was about 9%, right? Around CY13, CY14. It took almost about 7 to 8 years, which is in CY19, CY20, for that number to come to almost about 20, 25%, right? So that number doubled up in 7, 8 years of time frame. In the post-COVID era, that trend has accelerated very sharply because from a 20, 25% share in CY19 rather, we are now at 45% share of digital advertising. So you can just say that trend has doubled up in terms of growth. And that's primarily because of COVID. That's a habit change, which is there. So the growth rate is very premium. Okay. And that's primarily because of two things. One is, of course, more time being spent. Second, of course, is more consumption, of content, binge watch, all these habits put together. Third is number of platforms, right? There have been multiple platforms which have been launched over the last 2 to 3 years. The market is highly fragmented. India as a country, we've got more than 40 plus platforms. And fourth, of course, is the variety of content. So every platform is kind of flashing out new content every month, every week in terms of web series, movies, everything put together. So I think these things are kind of leading to that strong growth of OTT as a medium, right? And it's primarily any growth of any industry is led by consumption, and consumption is something which is driving growth for OTT as well. There's nothing new or different in that. But I think going ahead, as I said, this model is somewhere not looking sustainable, right? So because let's take it this way, I don't foresee that any OTT platform in India today is making money. I mean, I remember that I think Netflix was profitable in India about 2 to 3 years back. But even right now, if you see the kind of content cost loading that they have done in India, I don't think they also profited at EBITDA level. I mean, the numbers are not known, but that's probably my assessment. The reason for that is content cost is very hefty. And in a country like India, people do not pay for content. ARPUs are very low. And the reason again for that is it's like a chicken and egg, right? Because ARPUs on TV are so low at 300 rupees and you get about 900 channels, why would a customer pay 200 rupees, 100 rupees per month on a subscription of one single OTT platform? So today, as a customer, as a layman, I am paying 350 rupees for cable ARPU where I'm getting 900 channels, which is like a huge variety of content. And at the other end, if I want to subscribe to the key platforms in India, uh, I have to pay almost about 800 rupees a month or 1000 rupees a month rather On top of that, I have got data cost, which is almost about 607 rupees a month. My broadband cost, which is there. So putting this in perspective, digital ARPU or other digital payment mechanism is almost about 3 to 4 times more expensive as compared to what TV would be. So that is the problem in a market like India because people are not willing to pay for content, right? And that is kind of is a big challenge. Again, that's why I'm saying for linear TV, broadcaster, based platforms of other platforms to scale up revenues in a certain manner is a challenge because people don't pay for content. Second issue with scale is advertising. So on the advertising side, as I was telling you, you've got e-commerce, you've got social search, okay, and video is just one third of digital advertising. So all these platforms have to compete very hard with these other giants to actually get a larger chunk of the advertising revenue. So which is why there's a problem wherein some of these platforms are free, but they're not able to get pay-based revenue. And pay-based revenue is very important for the ecosystem because once you have a sizable pay-based revenue, you have a sticky customer base, you can predict your cash flows, you can accordingly make and invest into content for the future slate. So pay-based revenue is very important. Purely depending on advertising does not augur well. So the ideal model for a market like India is the freemium model, which is there, right? So for now, we have seen this growth because platforms being launched, people watching, but where is the money? Because nobody's making any EBITDA. Everybody's burnt money. Everybody's making hefty EBITDA losses, and you have to give to the market. The market is new. There was experimentation. People are trying multiple things. They were making 20 web shows a year. They were trying to make different genres of web shows. All those things are there. But I think eventually any financial investor or any platform would want the money on the table, which is not happening right now. So I'm saying going ahead, you will see a correction here. To correct the economics, you have to see a correction. And one mode of this correction, as I told you, is consolidation. Because customers are not going to pay in large numbers for the content. You can't even go pure advertising way because there you're competing with players like YouTube, which have a lion's share in terms of overall advertising. So freemium is the way, but consolidation will happen. And with consolidation, costs will become lower. So your content costs will become lower because of bargaining power moving in favor of platforms. Your customer acquisition cost becomes lower, your employee cost becomes lower, you have synergies to exchange between the businesses, technology cost becomes lower. So consolidation is a way to arrest this entire issue of OTT which are facing right now. And we are hopeful that next 3 years, 5 years, you could see some platforms turning profitable because the way things are going right now, I mean, things were just going just as good in terms of people paying online for content. And then comes Geo Cinema last year, who's offering the most premium content IPL free of cost. And the platforms have got nowhere to hide because eventually they also start offering content free, which is not sustainable because the kind of content cost you have paid, you can't even recover more than 30-40% of the content cost through pure advertising. You have to have a paywall as well. That's a global trend, right? I mean, that's how globally platforms have scaled up. That's how globally platforms are successful. So I think it's a matter of time. I think things will stand to be corrected in the next 2 to 3 years, and hopefully in the next 4 to 5 years, we will see economics becoming better for the OTT platforms in India.
The media and entertainment industry, as you just highlighted, also spans gaming, sports, and so on. Given the difference in evolution and market adoption of each of these, which are the ones that show strong promise in the coming years?
So I think in terms of promising across the segments, if you see, digital is obviously very promising. So as I told you, in terms of split, digital would be around 45% of the overall ad spends. Traditional would be almost about 55%. But in terms of promise, in terms of growth, it's only digital. I think digital will continue to grow at least 10 to 15% in terms of advertising. Uh, Whereas traditional will, grow at somewhere nothing more than about 3 to 5% on a steady state, which means that effectively they will lose share every year. And India is very small in terms of digital. India is only about 45% of advertising in India is digital. Globally, these numbers are very different. For a market like China, it's, I think, somewhere more than 85%. For US kind of markets, it's more than 70%. So the global average for digital advertising is more than 65-70%. India is at 45%. So there's a big lag or a gap to be made up. And which are the drivers for this digital advertising growth? In my opinion, I think one very big driver is going to be e-commerce. So what is happening in e-commerce right now is that if you look at the internet ecosystem or the digital advertising ecosystem, a lot of search activity is now moving away from players like Google towards players like e-commerce. People are not searching for products and services on Google; they are searching for products and services on e-commerce. Uh, Data protection is another thing which is working in favor of e-commerce platforms because they own their customer. And if you look at the recent bill of DPDP, which was the Digital Data Protection Act, uh, even that is kind of somewhere having some kind of science wherein the platform can use the customer data for their own advertising efforts, right? So I think e-commerce will easily grow at 35 to 40% in terms of digital advertising, in terms of revenue. So that's one very big driver, or something which is to be monitored over the next 3 to 4 years in terms of growth opportunity. Second big potential within digital is gaming. So I think unfortunately gaming was hit by this entire GST regulatory issue which was there. But I think except apart from that, gaming has got massive potential. Gaming has got a potential in terms of real money gaming. Gaming also has a very big potential around esports. I think esports is not even taken off in India. It's a very small market for now. But globally, esports is a very big business model. So I think if esports kind of gets things right, and if people actually start watching esports, online, and if media rights value of esports increases, you will see that as a mega trend as well. So I think e-commerce, gaming, put together with esports, connected TV. Again, this could be the solution for the broadcasters, because broadcasters are not able to scale up their digital revenue. So, for example, if Sony Entertainment has got a platform called like Sony Live, uh, they are not able to generate more than 20% of their revenue through digital. Still 80% is traditional. How will you actually see the trend wherein they can generate 50-60% of their revenue from digital? That will happen through connected TV. So if connected TV is growing in terms of penetration or in terms of reach, so let's take the example of a company like Sony, right? I mean, for them, connected TV is a solution, because if you look at connected TV, the penetration numbers are very small right now. We just have 20 million households which are get connected right now. Eventually, this could move to 40, 50 million households or even more. So, and traditional companies like, for example, Sony, Z, they are not able to derive more than 10 to 15% of their revenue from digital. Still, 85% is coming from traditional. So, once you have connected TV ecosystem ready, you can actually measure the audiences. You can monetize that audience on digital in a very big manner, and that's how you will see scalability of traditional broadcasters scaling up their offering on digital. So I think e-commerce, esports, connected TV, 5G, again, this is like a very big trend as well as far as digital is concerned. So much of innovation happening over there, from the 5G air fiber which is coming right now, which gives you fiber like speed as well. So this could also lead to people consuming more in terms of content, people consuming content for more number of hours, and consumption increasing on digital put together. So I think these are 3, 4 trends for the next 3 years, which will make sure that the digital media or the digital advertising industry rather continues to grow at 10 to 15%.
Do you see connected TV also bringing down overall costs? Because you did mention earlier that, there's my cable television costs, there's obviously my broadband costs, and then my digital subscriptions. How do you see the content offerings, especially for the streaming platforms, becoming one, more accessible and also more affordable?
So, from a connected TV standpoint, I think what can happen, or what will rather drive the path for more consumption, is partnerships, right? So today, as a customer, if the customer is subscribing to every platform on a separate basis, the math doesn't work here. It's 4x as compared to what TV would be. But if there is a proper partnership ecosystem in place wherein you have an aggregator, like for example, let's say, Samsung is the aggregator, who is kind of talking to these 5, 6 platforms like, Amazon, Netflix, Sony Live, Z5, and he's trying to bundle all these platforms, and he's trying to give this to the customer at 60% discount as compared to what the market price would be, right? And Samsung can do that because Samsung maybe has a large customer base in terms of connected TVs, and they can probably offer a minimum guarantee, or some kind of a partnership arrangement with these platforms. And these platforms also will happily take it, because I think most of these platforms, if you see, none of them are going to directly to the customer in a very big manner, except for Netflix. Most of them are getting close to 80% of their subscriber or the paid subscriber through partnerships, right? And that's been the norm always, because distribution is a challenge as far as content is concerned, because customer acquisition is there. The costs are very high over there. I think from a pricing standpoint, connected TV distribution is something which is more efficient, more effective. It is a win-win for the ecosystem, because it will help platform realize a large scale of paid subscribers. It will help the customer, because the customer will be able to get that platform subscription at a very hefty discount. And it will also help the OEM operator, because the OEM operator has got a direct connect to the audience, and they can provide the value add to the customer. which other OEMs cannot provide. So I think this is how the ecosystem will develop. You will see, prices converging as far as this platforms is concerned in terms of the ARPUs which they command. Uh, what they would command from one single platform, A plus B plus C plus D versus what a bundle aggregation would command, it would be at a 50% discount. So the entire gap, which I told you, 3 to 4x is OTT's cost versus TV, that will converge to almost about 2x. And that will be the growth driver, because then you'll have large base of subscribers for OTT platforms. Then you'll have large set of consumers who would want to watch content online on the connected TV.
Given the intangible quality of content that drives consumer response and sentiment, what are the various models that, one can deploy to predict the success of a web series or of a particular film?
So, this is a very good question. I think this is the problem which we are facing right now in the industry in a very big manner. So, I think let's start with Bollywood, right? And this has been the case all throughout. Whatever Bollywood films that come, you'll always see a scenario wherein it's only the 10 to 15 films in a year out of thousands of films that are made across genres, which contribute 70-80% of box office, right? And that clearly goes to show it's very heavily skewed. So there is a long tail of films which actually do not make money or become a flop. Similar case for TV shows as well, right? I mean, if you look at TV shows, any broadcaster who's there, the top three shows would generate 70% of the revenues because of the hefty pricing which is there. The same thing has followed on web series as well, right? If you look at web series, whatever is being made right now, there is so much of experimentation. If you look at movies again, there are movies which go direct on OTT platforms as direct digital rights. They're not released on cinemas, they go directly on OTT. There is so much of experimentation taking place on OTT, and OTT, I think, uh, has the lowest success rate in my opinion, because firstly, for a customer it's very tough to find out something which would suit his or her taste and then to get hooked onto it, right? And there are so many platforms, the market is so fragmented, the customer is so confused, right? So apart from, say for example, if a platform is making, say, 20 web series in a year, not more than one or two become a success or a hit. It's like more than 90% is like a failure. So the problem with this is that I think platforms are not sharing ample data or being transparent in terms of what is being consumed and what is not being consumed. And I mean, it's not their fault to give it to them. They are a subscriber or an SWOT based platform, so they're not liable to share that data. It is for their own purpose as well. But I'm saying that if the content creator ecosystem and if the platform were to come together and work and actually see in terms of what is working, what is not working, this problem can be resolved. And with this, what will happen is that the content cost of the platform will come down significantly. Because today, if the OTT platform is making losses, the platform is making losses majorly because of high content costs, majorly because of experimentation. They are bombarding so much of content that so much of the content is they're not able to understand in terms of what is going right, what is not going right for them. So if this coordination is there between the creative ecosystem and the platform, you could see an arrest in terms of content cost. That's one. Secondly, you could see content becoming more successful, because I think OTT is the only media, or rather, digital is the only media wherein you can get data on a very transparent basis, as compared to TV or cinema, wherein you can't measure transparency at a large scale. So I think digital is all about scale, and getting the data on a large scale is a big win-win for the ecosystem. So I think some kind of sense would prevail between the creative ecosystem and the OTT platform, wherein they can actually share data and they can predict in terms of what is the kind of content which is working, what is the kind of content they should make in order to make this success ratio higher going ahead.
But how do you see this model working? Because a production house, for example, may not be exclusively working for a streaming platform. And, like you rightly said earlier, every streaming platform will share data for its own internal, research and prediction and forecasting. So how do you see this working at an industry level? Because you make a very good point on transparency and disclosures, but how do you see this working practically? Are there any models internationally?
I think there are models. Just about a month ago, when Netflix, you saw that they gave out the data in terms of number of hours every web series or every film produced by them globally has been watched. I think this is a very good indicative data for a start, because you can actually segregate what is worked a lot, what is not worked a lot, and you get some idea in terms of what genres have worked, what have not worked. I think other platforms should also follow suit of this and really make sure that the ecosystem comes together to work upon this, because it's for the benefit of both parties. I mean, they may not share exact granular data, in terms of who is watched, how much time, the entire demographic. No, but at least some indication in terms of whether or not the creative ecosystem or the producer on the right path or not. So as you said, obviously they're not exclusive in nature. So you know, a producer A with a platform B cannot rather force the platform, to give this kind of data. But some indication is very much necessary because this will benefit the creative ecosystem. This will benefit the platform more than the creative ecosystem because today the ecosystem or the other creators are charging hefty money for the content. Tomorrow, the platform is able to give the feedback to the creator. But the creator can make sure that the creator can able to deliver better quality content and able to make the changes which are needed, for the content to become successful. So it's a bigger win-win proposition for the platform than for the creator.
What is the outlook of the industry for 2024?
So I think the outlook is quite bright. I would not kind of say, although we've seen a lot of ups and downs in the industry, but the outlook seems quite bright. One, of course, is big becomes bigger. So we've seen consolidation. So we have a view here in that Network 18, TV 18, Reliance, Disney. The bigger companies will kind of have a say in the ecosystem and they might become bigger. So media as an industry, or the digital rather, is a winner takes it all market, right? I mean, we've seen that clearly. If you have cricket, if you have sports rather, in terms of advertising, 90% is given to cricket. If you have video, more than 75% is gone to YouTube, right? So it's a winner takes it all market. So the larger players will try to become larger in the ecosystem. That's one very big trend which you're seeing. Second, I think as a trend which you're seeing is that CY24 may not be as compelling for the cinema chains or for box office as compared to CY23. One is, of course, the base effect. Last year was phenomenally good. I think in terms of Hindi box office last year, we have breached pre-COVID box office by 20%, and a lot of records are broken that year. And the second reason is the kind of slate that we have for this year for Hindi films. It is much lesser number of films as compared to last year, because as I said, a lot of things are now at a standstill, wherein consolidation is happening on the OTT platforms end, and until about 2 years back, OTT platforms were giving money to the producers just basis the star or basis the historical performances of the director of that particular film. But now I think a lot depends in terms of the quality of content as well. So I think there's going to be benchmarking for OTT rights, towards the box office, and that's how things are going to be reworked upon. So I think because of this also you'll see the slate becoming slower in terms of flow of films. Plus, I think box office will also see the negative impact of Hollywood Writer Association strike, because you're going to have fewer number of English films releasing in India as well, and English contributes 15-20% of box office. So I think because of these reasons, I think box office will be a mixed year as far as CY24 is concerned.
So what
I
about,
think
sorry, but what about regional? The contribution of regional, do you see that, being positive?
so. Regional, I think, of course, has grown a lot. If you look at the post-COVID era versus pre-COVID era, I think regional share has increased by at least 35 to 40%, in terms of broader share. But I think therein the trend is very similar. Small, medium budget content is not doing well. It is only large films which are doing well. So I think on a consistent basis, even regional has seen this negative impact of digital media consumption. But again, regional on OTT is next very big trend in CY24. You'll see many platforms making regional films, making regional web series for their audience, because there is a lot of penetration opportunity left over there. So that's another very big trend which is there. I think within sports, cricket will continue to dominate, advertising, because that forms a larger chunk. IPL, no matter how much ever the numbers would look lesser as compared to what it was 2 years ago on TV, but IPL has a lion's share as far as advertising is concerned. We saw that with World Cup as well. I mean, we saw that advertising spends were actually moved away from traditional media platforms or the TV channels towards World Cup. So cricket has a very strong recall in terms of this overall ecosystem. And CY24 obviously will also have this big delta from elections. General elections have a big fillip on ad spends across digital, TV, print, radio, everything put together. So you'll see resurgence of many of these smaller traditional mediums like print and radio or out of the home, which were kind of struggling right now. So election will provide them the much needed boost which is there. And lastly, as I told you, e-commerce bundling and 5G. So you may find a lot of e-commerce platforms bundling with video-based platforms as a value-add service, just as we've seen with Amazon. They've got video and Prime, Amazon Prime as well. This could be the next big trend, whereas e-commerce platforms, or they would try to invest with video platforms to actually give this as a value add to their customers. And lastly, it's the innovations within 5G, what you're seeing right now. So 5G, the problem is the user content is not ready right now. So in the case of 4G, you had video content which was ready. In the case of 5G, there is not enough AR VR content which is ready. So once the user case or once the use case is ready for 5G, once we have enough content, you will see people upgrading to 5G in large numbers, and that will be the innovation, which will drive growth as well in the industry. So there are ample drivers for CY24.
Thank you, Karan. It looks like a really positive outlook for this year. And thank you for sharing all your insights.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.